The conference is an opportunity to bring together practitioners, academics and policymakers from around the world to explore issues around how we reward behaviours in work, whether it's the public sector, the private sector or the voluntary sector. This is really aimed not just at the HR community, which would be the standard kind of community for reward issues. This is aimed at a very broad and general community of business leaders, policy leaders and thought leaders as well. So we're actually inviting a whole range of people, and there's essentially no limit on who we're prepared to accept within the conference. What we ask is that people come with an open mind and with some creativity and courage to question how do we want this issue of how we reward behaviours, what we consider fair and equitable treatment within our organisations, for the recognition of effort, how we think about how we come together as communities, both of individuals and of groups and teams within the evolving work environment, and simply make that a better, more efficient process. And there's two particular foci, I suppose, in terms of outcome that we wish to see from this reward conversation, and it is a conversation amongst these stakeholder groups. How can we use reward better to create value, which is typically where the focus is really about establishing this relationship between pay and performance, but actually much more so than ever before, and I think an innovation is to look at the context of what's been happening recently with regards to reward and pay, and also this issue of risk. What we read about in the newspaper every single day is this issue of pay dysfunctionality, not just so much pay working in terms of generating performance for companies. So our focus is very much around how do you create value through reward, innovation, but actually how do we minimise risk as well? Risk in terms of economic failure, but actually also in terms of social cohesion as well. I'm delighted to say that Lord Victor Adebowale, as a representative of the policy world and also the charitable sector, will be contributing, addressing particular issues around leadership and responsibility and reward. And of course, we can think about these things in the context of bankers' pay, of chief executive pay. So that's a highly exciting prospect and shows that we're actually reaching out to previously parties that wouldn't have had a conversation or a part in the conversation about how companies structure reward, for example. And so Lord Victor Adebowale will be coming at this from very much a social perspective, but we also have corporate representatives coming along, companies that are doing really innovative things that others might learn from or gather inspiration. We also have a number of academic speakers, of which I am one, as well as other policy speakers. So this is very much a non-traditional focus on this thorny issue. And it's far too tempting, far too easy to just sort of push this issue aside because it's too complex or too hard or simply too emotional. Everybody has an opinion about reward, about pay, particularly about what they're paid and how it could be better. It's actually about confronting these issues, like I say, as a community, generating some consensus through dialogue, and asking the difficult questions and being inspired to want to do something about it. I'm absolutely delighted that we here at the University of Cambridge Judge Business School have the opportunity to partner with WorldatWork. They are a preeminent industry body, professional body, located in the US, but as you say, with a global presence, specialising in the subject of reward and human resources more widely. And their mission is very similar to our own. It's to push forward ideas, to reach out and engage with stakeholder groups, particularly practitioner groups who are really in the trenches with regard to some of these issues around both value creation and risk management through reward, but also above all else to educate. So they have a strong educational mission, very much ties with our own. This issue of reward is a perennial one, particularly reward dysfunctionality, and we've been living with it for decades. Lately, it has become a particularly corrosive element within our organisations, both in terms of employee disengagement, demotivation, but actually on a wider societal basis around generating conflict and divisions. And all of this is absolutely counterproductive in the context of an environment where actually we need to become far more connected, far more integrated, both as organisations, but actually as communities of organisations, ecosystems, in order to create value in this increasingly complex and, as we say, hyper-competitive world. One of the biggest questions I think we'll be asking is, how do you reward behaviour in the absence of managerial structures, for example? How do you judge what's fair in reward terms in terms of what somebody gets paid when you're actually removing the hierarchy, that is the structure that you assign pay levels to? Essentially, going forward, the agenda is going to be far more fluid. It's going to be far less transparent in terms of having an objective formal structure around which you can impose rules, as we have in the past, to manage, in effect, the obvious potential for conflict over pay, because pay is a highly emotive issue. In the context of all those challenges, how do we want it to be different? How does it have to be different? And so that's the key thing. For this, the focus is really around change. How do we change positively? And change is not an option. It is something that we have to confront, embrace, and actually move forward and treat as an opportunity. And actually, we won't do that by having these separate, discrete conversations or trying to grapple with it in our own way. It's actually by coming together as a community, like I say, of academics, of practitioners and policymakers, and addressing these thorny issues.